Hi, my name is Robert. This video is designed to give you step-by-step detailed instructions on completing the task at hand. Please read the comments in the About section of this video. It has valuable information and updates. My YouTube channel has a disclaimer video that I encourage you to watch. And please like, share, and subscribe. I hope you found what you're looking for. Thank you very much for watching. In this video, I'm going to show you how to bleed the brake system and exchange the fluid in my vehicle. This is one of the most neglected brake services that people have on their vehicles, and in some cases it's fatal, unfortunately. If your brake fluid is bad and it's too wet and it doesn't give you braking power you need and your brakes fade and fail, you can have an accident, and accidents can be fatal. If you haven't done so, you should check your owner's manual to see how often you should replace your brake fluid. Here on my vehicle it says brake fluid should be replaced every 30,000 miles, and the reason they want to have that done is because through the use of the vehicle and the brakes heating up and cooling off, the brake fluid becomes what they call wet and loses its ability to apply the pressure to the pads through the calipers that it should. You should also check your owner's manual for the type of brake fluid that you use, and here it says DOT4 or better, and if it doesn't specify, you should always use synthetic, and don't confuse that with silicone. Silicone brake fluid does not absorb moisture, and synthetic regular brake fluid does. Anytime you see a product like this Valvoline, it has DOT3 or 4, which means that it exceeds DOT3 and is rated for DOT4. The DOT rating is basically the temperature rating for its maximum. A DOT3 will boil at around 400 degrees when dry, and the DOT4 will boil at about 450 degrees when dry. The difference between dry and wet is, as you use your vehicle and your brakes heat up and cool down and heat up and cool down, moisture is produced inside the braking system. Every year, about 2% of your fluid gets contaminated with this moisture. Brake fluid is designed to absorb this moisture and have it mix well. It doesn't separate, and as you continue to drive, this moisture will break down the brake fluid, and when you get closer to your exchange time, it's actually considered wet. You can Google this information. Dry, which is new, DOT4 will boil at about 450 degrees Fahrenheit, and when it's wet, they consider that about 10% contamination of water mixture. It'll boil closer to 300. So as you continue to drive, this stuff breaks down. That's why the owner's manual recommends you replace it every so many miles. Very few people do it, and it really diminishes their ability to brake their car. So you might ask, why do some bottles just have DOT3 and some bottles have DOT3 and 4? Well, really, this is rated for the higher temperature DOT4, and this is rated for the lower temperature DOT3. So this bottle here may be $4, and this bottle here may be $8. DOT4 costs more than DOT3 because it can withstand more temperatures. Again, you want to replace this fluid because when it gets wet they consider 10% saturated with water, it'll actually boil. And DOT3, instead of boiling at 400, it'll boil about 280. And on DOT4, instead of boiling at somewhere around 450, it'll actually boil at somewhere around 310 degrees Fahrenheit. So you do want to get rid of that old fluid when it becomes no more than 10% saturated. Now, as you're driving along, especially in circumstances where you have to use a lot of braking, like downhills or city driving, stop and go stuff, your brakes heat up more and more. Now, once they get to their boiling point will cause them to create a boil effect, and which is a gas effect. Hopefully your fluid never reaches that temperature, but when it does, it'll lose its ability to grab. I had one circumstance where I really experienced brake fade. It's a combination of your pads heating up and no longer grabbing on to your rotors. The other aspect of that is when your fluid reaches its temperature limit, and it will give you a spongy feel and lose its ability to press on those pads as well. So the combination of the two can be detrimental. So you want to change your fluid to reduce the chances of it boiling. Basically, you have 4 things in your braking system that you need to maintain and service. Number 1, you replace old and worn out pads. Number 2, you replace worn out rotors or rotors that are warped or cracking. Number 3, you replace the fluid in the system, which is rarely done. And number 4, you replace hoses in the system that are getting old and cracking. That is rarely done. So first thing I'm going to do is put my car on ramps, and I'm going to bleed out the old fluid with the bleeder system that I have. And once I get that done, I'm going to work on replacing the front brake system. I've done some normal driving, and I'm going to go ahead and shoot this brake so we can see how hot it is. Up 109 degrees Fahrenheit. 114 on the pad. Been sitting about a minute. It's reading 153 on the rotor. Here it is on the rear. 165 on the rotor. 109 on the caliper. But sometimes your caliper doesn't read right, especially if it's painted. I'm going to show you how to use this basic brake bleeder kit that I got from Napa Auto Parts. It says it bleeds brakes, clutches, and transfers fluid. Make sure you have all the parts you need: your hand pump, your reservoir, 2 pieces of hose, and your connections, and see if your hose fits firmly on your bleeder, which on mine it does. So I shouldn't need any adapters. You might want to put a little silicone gel on your connections to put your hose on, help them get an airtight fit, and put this stuff together. Now that you have your pieces together, you want to go ahead, and I actually broke that loose with a socket. Now I can finish opening it up with a little hand wrench. As you can see, the fluid is already coming down in there. Now I want to go up front and make sure that my reservoir up front in the engine compartment is full. So I'm going to remove my reservoir cap and make sure that that is clean and full. And I didn't realize it was going to be hard getting that off with my bar there. I'm going to fill it up a little bit more with fresh fluid and then begin the bleeding process. Again, this is the fluid that I decided to get, .4, because it is rated to handle the temperature limits of my braking system. And I think it's about a 32-ounce bottle, may do the whole system. It's not that much for its importance, so you may want to get a large bottle and a small for topping off later. Fluid is some harsh stuff, so you don't want to spill it on anything. I'm going to get a funnel so that I can do this right, because spilling this stuff on paint or anything will strip it and eat through stuff. So let me go get a funnel. You need to make absolutely sure that your funnel is clean and dry. I sprayed this down with brake parts cleaner, then I shoved a rag with a long screwdriver all the way through it to make sure it was clean and dry. You do not want any contaminants in your brake system. Well, it looked like this actually got started without me, but you want to vacuum all of the fluid out of here until you get clear fluid. And you want to start from the wheel furthest from the reservoir. So you go passenger rear, driver's rear, passenger front, and then driver's front. So let me go ahead and make sure that this is right to vacuum this fluid out of here. With everything hooked up, I just start operating the hand pump a couple of times, and as you can see, it's drawing the fluid into the reservoir. So you want to try to make sure that no air bubbles is getting in at your connection. Pump it 4 times and I let it sit until I see the fluid slows down. Then I pump it 4 more times. When my bottle is half full, I'm going to go top off my reservoir again. And I do notice that this kit has these in here. They'll probably create a better airtight seal for me. So I'm also going to shut this off and switch to this, see if it cuts down on air. I think air is getting past my connection there on the hose. Even with that on the connection, I'm getting a lot of air bubbles. So that didn't seem to matter much. Now that I have the reservoir pretty much full, I'm going to hit this to relieve the pressure. Now I'm going to close that off. Actually, I should have closed this off first and then relieve the pressure. Now I'm going to dump this reservoir into a container. I actually think I get less air in it without that connection on the end, so I may switch back to running it without that connection. Bleeding this first caliper is the furthest one, so you're probably going to get a lot of fluid out of it. You really need to keep vacuuming this fluid out until it pretty much comes out clear. Anything with a tint to it is dirty fluid, and you want to suck all of the dirty fluid out and only have clean coming out before you stop. That may take 16 to 20 ounces on this caliper back here. Again, be careful not to run your reservoir up there empty. You don't want air getting into your brake booster and places like that and in these lines. The fluid coming out now is almost pure clear, and that's what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this one down, get some pressure on it, and close off the bleeder screw as it's bleeding so there's no air in this caliper. Alright, got that closed off. Now I'm going to unplug that, snug that down, put the wheel on. The driver's side is not near as bad as the passenger side was, and after a bottle and a half, this stuff is coming out almost clear. So I'm only going to have to take 2 bottles out of this side. Bottle on the left is the brake fluid out of the passenger side rear. The bottom on the right is the brake fluid out of the driver's side rear. So we'll see how clear it gets when I do the front. If you feel that this information was useful, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can subscribe to my channel so that you will get notifications of future videos that I post. You can follow me on Twitter, and if you need to contact me directly, please visit my website. And if you have any questions, leave them below, and someone or myself will reply to them. Again, thank you very much for watching.